ESPN's Darren Ravel reported the owners of UFC are considering selling the promotion. The estimated price tag somewhere between $3.5 and $4 billion. Now let me ask you this, Paul. If you had $4 billion in your back pocket and you bought the UFC, what changes would you make?
What changes would I make? I think I would... Look, I'm a UFC fan, and I actually like the way UFC runs. I think The Ultimate Fighter is a wonderful vehicle they use to get you to know some of the unknown fighters. And I actually, if I look at the way UFC is running, the biggest complaint is sometimes the cards are a little weak. You know, you get one big fight and then the rest are sort of, I don't know if I want to pay for this. So, you know, maybe a few less pay-per-views and build up the anticipation a little bit more, but some of that's injury related. So I don't know that I'd change a whole lot about the UFC. I think it's trending in the right direction. I think sometimes there's maybe not enough fairness as to which fighters get a push, but I also get that it's a promotion and there are elements of pro wrestling in it. So I don't think they're too far wrong right now with what they're doing. Okay, Jonathan, you're not as big a fight fan. What do you think?
Well, I just wonder if it's sort of a growth business the way Paul might suggest it is. Like, I think it's, you know, $4 billion. I think it's really niche. I think Conor McGregor captures our attention, even captured my attention. Without Conor McGregor, how many UFC fighters can most of us name? Not many, and I think, you know, we talk about this sort of thing with other leagues. It's not just the UFC. The NHL has a huge problem with its personalities, and I would say that UFC and MMA in general has that problem too. And there's also a bit of a perception problem. A lot of people who don't watch UFC think of it like WWE, and of course, it's not really like WWE at all. Except they do also have to create storylines. Right? So whether they happen or not, or are manufactured or just happen.
Paul, let me ask you, do you think that the owners of UFC are trying to sell high? We're seeing peak UFC right now, and $4 billion is what as big as this company's going to get.
Some of the stuff that I've read, and of course the UFC is tied heavily to Vegas because it is the fight capital of the world, there's speculation that they want in on an NFL team. And if the Raiders don't actually move to Las Vegas, that the owners of the UFC are going, okay, the NFL seems to have opened the door here, and if hockey's coming in and everything else, and that's why they want the cash, because $4 billion would come in handy if you actually wanted to get an NFL team in a proper stadium. So if that's the reason behind it, then, you know, I can see why. Selling high, I disagree with Jonathan a little bit. I think a lot of the perceptions against the violence of it, there's a lot of people who still look at it as like human cockfighting, and they find it a little bit distasteful. I always have trouble with our own Ed Willis, who's not here, who's a huge fight guy, loved boxing, absolutely lived for boxing, hates UFC. And to me, that was the translation. I got into UFC because I used to watch the big boxing matches with my dad. There's this perception that China is very interested in this and that that's where some of the money would come from. So in terms of selling high, not because it's peaking, but selling high because there's a huge market out there that someone else wants to capitalize on and they're ready to hand off and take the money out.
Okay, one last question for you, Paul. I want to know, in one word, is the UFC a niche product, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You agree, obviously?
Yeah, of course I agree it's a niche product. But let me ask you this question to finish up. There's been talk out there that Floyd Mayweather should fight Conor McGregor for like the fight of the ages. You know, boxing, I know you think boxing is a thing of the past and MMA is a thing of the present and the future. Does the UFC want to even get messed up in that, besides the fact that, I don't even know, could you even sanction that sort of fight?
I think everyone's, you can sanction anything, right? If you're in Las Vegas, you can sanction anything. And if there's enough money there, they'll go in on it. This is almost like a CFL, NFL question, Jonathan. It's no one wants to look bad, and so how much money are you going to pay me to look bad? If it is MMA rules, Floyd Mayweather would be destroyed by any decent guy his weight within a matter of minutes. If it's boxing, I don't know that you get close enough to Floyd. I mean, Conor McGregor's got heavy hands. He really does. What kind of gloves are you wearing, right? Mayweather's a bit of a hunt and peck. You've got more padding there. McGregor, you saw what he did to Aldo in 15 seconds. He knocked him out with one clean shot. So there's a lot of things to consider there. And really, how do you answer that question? Until I know the parameters, like who would win, how could it happen? So is Floyd Mayweather, who likes to tell us he has more money than anyone else in the U.S., is he willing to tarnish his legacy and his reputation? you know, by being knocked out. For how much more money does he really need it? Floyd Mayweather would never in a million years. This is where Dana White, who talks a lot of bullshit, this is where Dana White is right. He doesn't think that fight will ever happen because it took 5 years to put Pacquiao Mayweather together. Can you imagine Mayweather trying to protect his image? You know, he'd want giant balloon gloves. He'd want all sorts of stipulations that would favor him, and I just don't see the win in there for McGregor.
Okay, MMA fans, for more MMA news from the province, you can download the Keyboard Chimera podcast, and you can find it on iTunes.